Good morning, A-Level PE. Today I'm going to do an overview of mass participation in sport, and we're going to focus on the UK. I'm going to first of all start with the quick overview of the syllabus. As you can see here, what we're looking at is this section here, mass participation, relating to a country of your choice. And we're focusing on the UK. In a second, I'm going to switch to the PowerPoint and give you an overview and discuss each point there so you can continue working on that, expanding your notes, practicing past paper questions, etc. So what we're looking at here is the benefits of regular participation in sport. When we're talking about regular participation, we're talking about the benefits to an individual, and we're talking about the benefits to society as a whole. We look here at widening the base of the performance pyramid. We've got the 4 levels of the performance pyramid, and we're looking at the base. So we're looking at the foundation level. This is the introduction to sport, grassroots. So the introduction to sport for young people, adults trying new sport, for example, so we're looking at school sport, the establishment of taster sessions, coaches going into schools, etc., and the benefit that has on participation within the population. Initiatives to encourage mass participation. Here we're looking at the initiatives or strategies provided by organisations such as UK Sport, Sport England, Youth Sports Trust, and then the initiatives also at a local level. So we're looking at government initiatives at a local level, also the provision of grassroots organisations, local clubs, voluntary organisations, etc. Provision of facilities, breaking that down into private, public and voluntary, a comparison of each one. The funding for mass participation, where does it come from, where does the money come from, who can access the money. The provision of grassroots level by the NGBs. We'll focus on the FA as a case study, okay, as an example. And also the attitudes to participation, the reasons why people want to participate in physical activity, and also reasons they give why they don't. So I'm going to change my screen now and go to a different one. So let's go to the PowerPoint. Okay, so here we go. I'll just keep it in this view, and we'll go through each slide individually, starting with the benefits of regular participation in sport. So I said we're going to break this down into the individual and society. Now, what I've taken here is I've taken looked at some past papers, looked at some of the typical questions that come up, and just taking the last few straight from those so we can discuss those. Looking at these then, so an individual, the benefit to an individual taking part. Obvious one is the benefit of physical health and fitness to the individual. Okay. Second point there, becoming skillful, knowledgeable, striving to achieve high standards. This is linked to the personal, the persona of an individual. What they might want to do, become skillful, they seek their challenges, they enjoy sport, they want to know more about it, and striving to achieve high standards is a personal goal. A third reason, enjoyment, the fun, the intrinsic satisfaction, the benefits to mental health as well, and self-esteem. Yeah, self-esteem comes from regular participation in sport. It's going to lead to a healthy lifestyle, healthy image, improved body shape, physical conditioning, makes you feel better. Those endorphins that are released, linked to mental health, it's going to make you feel good, and people appreciate that, they understand that, and they will take part in sport for those reasons. Another example of a personal challenge or competition, link that back to point 2 of the individual and what challenges they seek. Social health, being part of a team. We are social creatures. We strive to be part of a social group, and being part of a team enhances that kind of social health. We learn life skills, develop life skills such as leadership through participation in sport and physical activity. An individual can benefit by earning a living. We're not talking about just performing here. We're talking about coaching, being a physical trainer, teaching. So there's lots of links there. The fame, praise that people seek, medals to win, medals and achieve status. That's another reason someone might take part. Occupy your time, keep out of trouble. You know, we target the youth, especially with those strategies to try and keep them out of trouble, provide people with a hobby. And socialization, learning cultural values, ethics. You know, sport is governed by rules, and yeah, and also within sport you have sanctions, punishments for breaking those rules. And the idea of sportsmanship, fair play, you know, they will come in to play here. And the benefits to society, social control, occupy people's time. This was introduced, you know, right back in the early stages of development of structured sport, organised sport in the public schools. Back in the days of, you know, Rugby, Eton, Harrow, when they were starting to understand the benefit of physical activity as a social control within the school, to keep the boys occupied, because they were resorting to you know, outside of lessons, they had their own time. And with no structure, they got to mischief of all sorts. So it was a good method of controlling their behaviour, and that still applies to today. You know, if people have their time occupied, they're less likely to be up to no good. Basically, that's what this point's saying here. So crime prevention, keep them off the streets. If you have a population that is engaged in physical activity, you're going to have a healthier population. That's going to link to less strain on the health service, therefore fewer sick days, and a more productive society, more productive economy. Benefits to society: if there's increased participation, there's going to be increased demand, and that's going to lead to more facilities provided. This is going to happen within communities and neighbourhoods, and we'll see, you know, regeneration. You've got those public facilities, maybe run-down basketball courts, but if there's a demand and people want to play, they're going to get done. They're going to be improved. Another benefit to society: success at international level, more medals, and this leads to the national pride, taking pride. And we saw this in 2012 with the UK Olympics, getting their highest medal tally ever, finishing third in the table. And finally, inclusiveness, reducing social exclusion, integration of community. These are all other benefits to society. And move on then to the next slide. Looking at the next point in specification, widening the base of the performance pyramid. Here we've got the performance pyramid, we've got the 4 levels: foundation, participation, performance, and moving up to excellence. That's briefly explained here on the side, and also down here. Now, exam questions I've seen are exactly like this. Describe the 4 levels of the participation pyramid, or the performance pyramid, sorry. And this is straight from a mark scheme. Foundation, this is your introduction to sport, and foundation is the bottom level. And this represents, you've got to imagine the number of people taking part. So at the foundation, you've got the largest number of people trying out sport, and those levels, the number of people participating drops off as you move up the levels. So the foundation, largest number of participants. Up to excellence, you've got a small number reaching this level. Okay. So foundation, introduction to sport, learning basic movement skills. This is an experience of variety of activities, grassroots level, and school PE program. For many people, for many young people, and this is more targeted in the UK as well, their first experiences of physical activities is going to come through the school experiences, what they experience in school PE lessons, and what they are offered as extracurricular activities. And when we talk about Spain, we can apply that here as well, but there's a focus in the UK. Grassroots level, you know, what friends and family do as well. You know, if they've got friends that they go out and play with, they play football in the park, basketball at the local playground. This is the foundation stage, their first experiences. When they move up to the participation level, they're starting to choose and participate more regularly. Still recreational level, it's extracurricular involvement. It's saying, I enjoy this sport, I'm going to choose to do it in my own time now and carry it going. As you progress, you're going to possibly join a club, and this is where you move into the performance stage. You are attending training, you are working on improving your skills and trying to strive to perform as well as possible. This is competition now as well. This is quite a big level, ranging from the very grassroots competitive level, amateur level, right up to representational level. And then we move into the final stage, elite level. This is where we're performing at national level, international level, professionals. And remember, I talked about in class before about the link between excellence and foundation. We say that about 5% of the population that perform at foundation reach excellence. So that means if you had about 100 people in foundation, you get 5 reaching the kind of elite level. This is a generalization. So when we talk about widening the base of the performance pyramid, we talk about having the benefits that were mentioned before to society and the individual, increased productivity, healthier nation, and so on. But also we can link it to increased success at a national and international level. You widen the base of people participating in the foundation level, you increase the number who reach excellence. And that will ultimately mean that you'll increase the standard of excellence, and that can increase the number of medals you win as a nation, etc., increasing national pride and all the links that go together with that. Next slide. Moving quite quickly through this, but the initiatives, now put a couple of links here. These initiatives, these are strategies, and these are in place by organizations targeting all sections of society. So they're looking at encouraging the whole population of the country to participate, no matter what age you are. So we're looking at youth, right down from from when they can first walk, right, kindergarten activities, preschool, right up to the elderly. A lot of people kind of think, well, as you get older, you can't do sport. No, they adapt it. Sport becomes adapted. Look at football, for example. You've got the structure in place for youth sport where they play small-sided games. The fundamentals are developed. You go up to the school games, competition, adult leagues, etc. But then, football takes a bit of a toll on the body. People drop out. I stopped playing, for example. I stopped playing very early 30s. It was just taking a bit of a toll, on the knees, on the joints. Muscle injuries were happening more frequently. But as you get older, there's not really a reason to stop playing. Now, I could have carried on playing. Didn't really have the opportunity here, but in the UK, there's veterans leagues. This is where players over 30, 35, where they can still continue playing. And it's at a lower level. They're not trying to compete with the 20-year-olds nipping around them. The intensity decreases. People are a bit more respectful, maybe, of challenges and tackles, maybe. And then progressing right up to walking football. Walking football, which is really taking the intensity out of it, reducing the impact and tackles, etc., to allow people to play the game they love. We look at gender, okay, targeting. Now, obviously, females, we've mentioned females as well. Female participation drops massively after around the age of 15, 16. So there's strategies by these organisations such as Sport England, the Youth Sports Trust, and then at elite level UK Sport, target girls in sport. There's several initiatives out there that you need to look at. Disability, there's no reason why people with disabilities can't take part in sport, and there's many sports that have been adapted to suit people with disabilities. Wheelchair basketball, sit-down volleyball, wheelchair tennis, wheelchair rugby, all of these are adapted people with disabilities. So you've got the Paralympics in running consecutively after the main Olympics, and gaining status as well, just showing you what people with disabilities can do. It's inspiration. It provides people with role models as well. Socioeconomic groups, this is referring to income. So there's got to be strategies to encourage people of low socioeconomic groups to be able to participate in physical activity. And there are many reasons why people don't. We'll talk about some of those later. Ethnic groups as well. Ethnicity, ethnic groups often have cultural stereotypes why they shouldn't participate in certain sports. There's there's the lack of existence of role models, etc. Now, there's a couple of links here I want you to click on and visit and look at some of their initiatives that they put, and then look at a grassroots level here as well. And that link, you might have to copy and paste that. It doesn't look like the links come through, but copy and paste that into your browser for the fa.com and looking at some of the initiatives they have in place for grassroots football. Right, moving on. Provision of facilities in the masking point. Provision of facilities is broken down to private, public, and voluntary. Private facilities are those that are run for profit. This is, for example, private gyms. This is where you will have a facility where members pay to use it. Often that they have to pay a joining fee. They pay fees, subscriptions, whatever, and these will tend to be higher than you would pay at a public or a voluntary facility. The advantages and disadvantages, this is taken from the exam question of more private fitness clubs to local communities. An example, the picture here is of a David Lloyd Fitness Centre, one of the many they have across the UK. David Lloyd, big organisation in the UK, providing private leisure facilities. Now, the benefits that you will have by joining a club like this is more choice of provision, better, more up-to-date facilities, more up-to-date equipment. You will have probably more personal trainers on hand. Possibly the trainers will have more expertise, and these private clubs will probably pay more and attract the more qualified or better coaches. More opportunities to be fit. They'll have a full range of classes, activities to choose from. The times available will suit most, and they'll probably offer discounts for family memberships. Disadvantages: the increased cost. That's a key one that will limit the number of people who join from certain backgrounds. Fewer exist. There's not as many of these clubs. You might, compared to local facilities, they're not maybe as easily accessible. So travel required. Again, this will kind of cut out some socioeconomic groups, and public services may suffer as a result, may be underused. Now, the public services are provided for the benefits of the population, provided by the government, funded by the government, and because they might not be as good, up to date, well, the funding is being provided and they're not being used. Disadvantage is that the funding might be reduced, so that the people who do use the public facilities may suffer a bit. Okay, moving on again. This is a comparison then of voluntary and public facilities. Public facilities are usually run by local or government authority departments, your local council. The example here in Spain would be the local polideportivos. They operate on a budget, so they're provided with funding from the government, and they must operate on that budget, and therefore they set prices and charges in line with what they need to have as an income to run the centre. The public facilities may involve subsidies which come from the government. We should be comparing directly to the voluntary here. So the public run by the local government council compared to voluntary, which is run by members or a committee, unpaid volunteers. This would be a local cricket club, for example, a local football club, rugby club, that's set up and run by the members of the committee, unpaid volunteers normally. Whereas the public facilities rely on, they have a preset budget, set prices. The voluntary organisation runs on the profit loss. The profit will not be an overriding concern, and usually these kind of organisations will reinvest their profit back into the club, try and improve the facilities for their members. It doesn't go to individuals. Public facilities, this may involve subsidies, council tax, etc. That's where they get the funding from. Whereas voluntary clubs are funded by the members, and the members pay a fee or subscription. They might be able to attract sponsorship to help with that as well, pay for kits, pay for the facility, the equipment, coaching. The public facility moved to private management. It says here compulsory competitive tendering, so the best value. So you sometimes get the issue of facilities being run by a private firm, they supply a bid, and the best bid will get to run it. Voluntary will possibly run on a trust or charity basis. What a trust means is that this will be a fund provided for the running of the club. Public service, community provision aimed at every level. That's their aim. And the voluntary, they aim to increase participation and performance in their sport. They're looking for talent as well, providing provision for grassroots. Voluntary organizations, these are, as you saw before, run by members or a committee. These are people who love the sport. Let's look at a local cricket club, or rugby club, or football club. The committee will be past members, past or current players as well. People who love the sport, and then they want to continue to grow the sport in their local area, attract local people to take part in it, look for talent, try and progress that. Finally, lack of funds in the public facility. That means they're not usually well equipped. That they operate on a budget. The provision of equipment not brilliant. It's kind of enough to do its job. It's not amazing. And then within a voluntary club, your facilities and equipment will be dependent upon income. A successful club with a large membership base, local sponsorship, etc., will be able to provide good facilities and good equipment. A club with small numbers, small sponsorship, if any, will be obviously very different. Moving on quickly. Okay, next point in the specification is the funding for mass participation. Now, this funding comes from many different sources. The main source of funding in the UK would be the government and what they supply from the budget, and then that, for example, the National Lottery as well. So visit this link here for quite a good presentation from an ASP group. So copy that slide player link and go through that. It talks about the talented athlete scholarship schemes that are in place, the funding provided for people at different levels, etc. So please go visit that and work through that. It's quite a good page. Right, so provision of grassroots, next point on the syllabus, provision of grassroots by the NGBs. NGB stands for the National Governing Bodies. These are the organisations such as the Football Association, responsible for association football in the UK. RFU, the Rugby Football Union, they are responsible for the organisation and administration of rugby throughout the UK. Then you've got like Volleyball England, the Amateur Swimming Association, the Amateur Athletics Association. All of these are the governing bodies responsible for the coordination of sport within the country. Now we're going to focus on the FA because most of you are footballers. So what the FA do, they provide organisation structure throughout the country. They're responsible for the administration, organisation of leagues, competitions, funding, coaching, etc. Facilities. That's all organised and administrated by the FA. Now I'll put a link here to get an idea of the FA investment from 2018. I wanted to start doing things. So the FA plans, now you can see here the kind of amount of money they're investing into grassroots facilities. The target of £9 million per year. The money will support a range of new and existing facility programs to meet the needs across grassroots clubs. County FA. So you start seeing the structure here. You've got the Football Association, national governing body for UK football. England is divided into counties, and then each county will have their own FA, so responsible for the organisation within that county. Within the county, then you'll have another group of more local football associations who will be responsible for the coordination of football within a district or a specific area within the county. Increasing our investment in grassroots participation by nearly £6 million a year. So that's the target they're setting, to increase grassroots participation, so the funding going in there, and investing directly into the 20,000 grassroots affiliated clubs. So you can see a little bit of example there of the investment from the Football Association. Moving on, attitudes. Right, attitudes to participation. It's linked back a little bit to what we talked about earlier in slide 2, the benefits. But if you can read that, I know it's quite small, there's a lot of points mentioned. Factors that influence an individual's participation. So again, it's taken from a mile scheme. So you've got socio-economic status, and then you've got the explanation. Affected by disposable income. Disposable income is the money that you have for luxuries, for example, for beyond your core expenses that you must, your bills, once you've paid your bills, your food costs, etc., your necessities for living is what you're left with. So that's your disposable income. And whether you're in employment or not, obviously, as well. So that will affect people's participation. If you have got a high disposable income, you're going to have more opportunity to take part in a wider range of activities. If you're in employment, you can afford those, possibly afford those activities. If you're not in employment, then you're going to possibly struggle. You're going to be spending more time searching for jobs, reduces the possibility of taking part in sport. Also linked here to mental condition as well. You know, someone not in employment might be feeling depressed. It's a vicious circle. Yeah. Family, peers, friends, their interests, and this is linked back to what we did with GCSE. The influences of the family can be positive or negative as well. You know, the level of support provided, you know, it's quite self-explanatory. Age, suitable provision for any over 60s. Young people, maybe tendency to change their activities as people age. Now, look, use me as an example. I did a massive range of activities when I was a kid, ranging from team sports, individual sports, skateboarding, rollerblading, all that kind of stuff. Then as I moved into my 20s, that kind of those activities decreased. I moved from skateboarding, I moved into surfing, snowboarding, picked up these activities. Now that I'm the age I am, I won't mention it, but you know, my involvement in team sports has decreased. I'm more interested in fitness, maintaining fitness throughout personal individual activities. I still enjoy my team sports, but tend to be more of a spectator now than a participant. Still participate in surfing and snowboarding. So as you age, these activity levels change. Gender, men may be more likely to participate than women. There's a stereotype of women in sport. Unfortunately, it still exists. Some sports are more male and female appropriate. Now we talk about sports such as rugby due to its high contact levels, but the female participation rate in rugby is growing. There's no reason why it shouldn't. But it's got that stereotypical view as being a hard, tough contact sport, male-dominated. Netball, for example, is a high participation sport for females in the UK, very low male participation. This comes from tradition, culture. You know, females tend to play netball in school. Boys tend to play the typical boys sports: football, cricket, rugby, athletics. Girls tend to play hockey, netball, rounders. This was the tradition and culture that existed in school sport in the UK. It's changing now massively, but it still exists to an extent, especially in the adult population. Ability, your perceived level of ability, your fitness will play a part here as well into how you participate. Disability says there that people, you know, they might not have opportunities to participate. Low self-esteem, you know, feeling that they can't do it, could be an influence in someone's participation. Race and culture, whether discrimination exists, the kind of stereotypical views of black athletes should, you know, black people can run fast, stereotypical view. What else? I don't want to really go into too much detail there, but I'll talk about the lack of Asians in professional football in the UK. That's a good example. And therefore, because of that lack of representation, the young Asian population don't see it as a viable, you know, pursuit for the future. It's like there's no one of our culture, of our race involved, so therefore it's not really something we do beyond recreational levels. Religion may inhibit and prevent people from taking part. And the government status and attitude towards sport, their policies there. Now the UK have quite a positive policy towards sport and participation. So that has a positive influence, but you can see from the surveys and reviews that it hasn't been as successful as they would have liked. So they're still working on that, and of course that will affect a person's view to participation. Previous experience, and this is a big one from the older generation, whether they enjoyed or disliked physical education. Of course, that's just today. If you have a positive experience of physical education in school, you enjoyed it, you had good teachers, you had good experiences, the activities you did, you are going to have a positive opinion or influence to sport as an adult, and that's going to likely increase your desire to participate. And vice versa. If you have a negative experience, that's going to create a negative influence on you, and how you might pass that on to others in your sphere of influence, family members, children, and so on. I'll give you an example of someone who played hockey, did hockey lessons in PE in the hockey lessons in the freezing cold. Trying to play hockey wearing shorts and a light PE top, trying to grip a stick and hit a hard ball with 2 degrees, 3 degrees Celsius temperatures, they would have been pretty miserable. A good example as well, if you've ever had an opportunity to watch the film Kes, a film made in the 1960s, but it's got a fantastic scene in it, which is related to the football match scene, and Kes is not particularly good at football, is physically smaller than the other boys, and last to be picked, another boy is featured who's clearly overweight and wearing glasses. They hate it. They're absolutely miserable out there. So they would have grown up with that kind of negative attitude towards football and possibly physical activity as a result, and actually passed on to others in their sphere of influence. Geography, where you live, obviously can have an impact. If you're in a city area with a lack of grass pitches, etc., that might affect how your participation in football. But you might be more likely to play basketball, for example, because there might be urban areas, urban courts set up for you to play and so on. Whereas someone who lives in a rural area might be more likely to take part in outdoor activities. Role models, the increased provision of role models will encourage more people to take part. The media, the amount of exposure in different sports now, the media tends to be dominated by the main sports. Football is the dominant sport in the media, and as a result, that gets the most coverage and the most interest. But if other sports, if there's more coverage, that generates more interest, and it can make people more likely to have a desire to want to participate and try it. Employment, because sport can provide employment, people get involved and take it to the next level for employment reasons. And people's participation may be affected by the availability of time. Some sports require lots of time. You need time to be able to participate, practice, train, etc. And if you haven't got the time, you might affect your participation levels. Finally, I'm going on to the reasons given. This was another exam question. Reasons why people don't participate. So people, don't participate because of a lack of opportunity. A lot of these link back to the last slide we were just looking at. Few facilities. If you haven't got a tennis club in the area or tennis courts, you're not going to play tennis. You're going to have. You might want to. You have a tennis racket and a ball, and you hit the ball against the wall at home or on the road in front of your house with a friend. But you're not going to really develop it past that level unless you've got the facilities available. Poor infrastructure, lack of transport to get there. The location of facilities as well. People don't participate because of a lack of time, family commitments. We can look at the females here as well. Yeah, with young mothers who devote family time to rearing children might find that their time for participating in activity is reduced. Lack of money linked with income, disposable income, or the resources. Is it illness and disability? Put in together injury within there as well. There's a possibility, but yeah, that has been mentioned before. lack of initial training to develop skills and ability. No experience. You might have a volleyball club in your area, but you never played volleyball before. You lack that self-esteem to go along and say, right, I've never played before, but I want to play. Well, if you haven't got those basic skills, it might be a barrier to participation. Family sport. If you don't have the support of your family or your peers are pressuring you to not participating, then you won't do it. This is like, for example, again, linked to girls, teenage girls. The reduction is not seen as not cool to be all hot and sweaty and take part in sport. So people kind of like fit with their peers by saying, right, I'd love to play football, but girls don't play football, my friends don't play football. So fear of discrimination, prejudice, stereotyping, that's been mentioned before. Sport having a low status within a social group or cultural limitations. I referred to that before as well with the example of Asians, the Asian representation in professional football. Swimming within the black culture and community. Lack of ability, fitness, obesity, fear of not being good enough, lack of confidence or reason people are given for not participating, lack of education, knowledge about benefits of involvement, poor education in school, and coming away without knowing the benefits of involvement in physical activity. People don't participate because they don't realise how good it is for them. And finally, lack of motivation, conflicting interests. They have other things occupying their time. Lack of motivation, this could be linked to mental state. So these are all the reasons given. These are, as I said, where you've seen these points, these are taken from our schemes and related to actual past paper questions. So again, as always, refer to the specification. Link it to the past paper, make links to past paper questions. Use this PowerPoint, use the other resources available, the links that I provided, to really get a good idea for maths participation as a whole within the UK. Okay, so any questions about this, anything you don't understand, get in touch with me and let me know. Okay, right, that's it for now.